What did we see?
Blinded by the light. It's Chelsea at the movies, yay!
We went and saw the movie Blinded by the Light. So this movie, like many recent movies that have come out, is inspired in part by music. And this would be the music of Bruce Springsteen.
The boss.
And so this movie is set in England, in a town called Luton. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
I don't know. Luton?
It's hard. They have British accents.
Hello.
But the lead is a 16-year-old boy at the start of the movie. His family is from Pakistan, and he discovers through a friend at school the music of Bruce Springsteen, and all of a sudden his difficult life, he's like somebody understands him. It kind of changes.
This is a common human experience.
Everything.
Captured.
Yes, when we were watching the movie last night, I thought it was like, I was like, this is funny because sometimes if you're on the outside and the music doesn't speak to you, you're like, gosh, this is so lame. But like I can tell you, I even recognize there's been songs for me that are indeed lame, maybe not very good, but whatever was going on in my life at the time, like I'm going to tell you the song Return of the Mac, like helped me process a breakup.
Oh no.
That is like just the perfect example that came to mind for me just now.
Cute.
That was this movie. Kelsey, go wait or skip.
I had a hard time with this. I'm going to say wait to see this movie. While it checks a lot of the boxes that Kelsey likes in movies. One, it takes me to a time or place that I'm not familiar with, which is the 1980s. I was a kid in the 1980s, so I remember it.
In England.
But like taking me there. And England. Also a different culture, the Pakistani culture, something I don't really have a lot of in my life, so it's neat seeing that. And it's about music, and I love music. Music's important to me, and this guy loves Bruce Springsteen almost as much as I love Paul McCartney, so I get that. But there's just parts of this movie that I didn't think really felt like reality. It seemed a little like, they captured, on one hand, I don't know, it might just be because I'm a broken person too, is why I'm saying this. So like, part of the movie, the way that the people interacted with each other, he had so much love and support from people in the movie, and it was so foreign to me for everybody to like, hey, like, I care about what you're saying. I didn't experience that in my life, and I don't know if that's common. Maybe it is, but
yeah.
So I couldn't quite, something just didn't feel right. It seemed more like somebody really wanted to make this story and movie, and they made it, and it's not quite real. It's a fantasy.
I want to also say wait to see this movie. It was like really uplifting. I cried a few different times because there were parts of the movie that were kind of like moving or inspiring. The music was helpful. I don't like love all of Bruce Springsteen's music, but this movie was set in like the bulk of it in 1986 or 87, and he discovered Bruce Springsteen late, so it was really his first two albums. So like Born to Run, Born in the USA, like all, and I like those songs, like I like that stuff.
We like the greatest hits.
Yeah. And so that's primarily what this was in this movie, but there were I felt like the movie almost had enough to say to make a movie,
yeah,
but not quite enough content for a full-length feature film. And it was 2 hours, and there were definitely
seemed long
points in that movie where I was like, oh, how long have I been sitting here in this chair? And I don't know, I didn't feel that way when I went and saw Avengers Endgame.
Right.
That was almost 4 hours, know? So I think that's saying something. There definitely was a spot right in the middle that seemed kind of unreal, but it didn't go so far as to make it more theatrical. So when we went and saw Rocket Man, that movie blended facts and fantasy together in such a way that when something wasn't real, it was like he was floating off the ground.
Right.
They went that extra thing. In this movie, it just it didn't do enough in the fantasy or theatrical part to really win me over in that way.
Yeah.
So I think for those reasons, it's been chopped. No.
So
I say wait on that movie. Spoilers.
Maybe we were born to do spoilers. Do.
It was definitely interesting to see a Pakistani family, and so there was a lot of friction between father and son in this family, and how that all played out. Then you go to like England. I had no idea like what kind of schooling system he was involved in, like because it wasn't called high school, but he also wasn't at university yet.
We don't understand
And
England.
I don't understand how that all works. And then in Luton or Lewtown, apparently, like this was during the Cold War. They were at a huge, like people were just out of work all over the place, and just to observe like that in this movie, how they had to try to get a job, make money for their family. It was really interesting to see because I don't even know about like any of this.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, is it called racism? Like Pakistani and Muslim, those aren't races, but I guess that's still racism. To see how the
It's called
Pakistanis...
xenophobia is what it is.
Oh,
and it
okay.
happens in every country, whether your country predominantly white or something else. It's basically like nationalists for the country. Like,
Okay,
get out of
that's what
here!
I thought nationalism.
We don't take too kindly to pandas bears around these parts. You know, like, you're the other, and so we don't like you.
Right, which happens like across like all kinds of things. Like, but in this particular instance, like in this town especially, it was Pakistanis who had immigrated to this area and were not
People
liked.
in England, some of them didn't like it.
Yes.
And I feel like, so one of my problems with this movie is the oversimplification of that, which was like, we're all good and these people are all evil racists. Because I think it's probably more complicated than that in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that...
Well, anytime you label a group,
Yeah.
that's when divisiveness enters.
None of it is good, but I'm saying that like too often I see the vilification of one group, whether you're vilifying the Pakistani people or the other way, which this movie did. You're vilifying these other people. And I don't really like that because I don't think it solves anything, and I don't think it's realistic. Another thing that wasn't realistic. But then also, as a recovering codependent, I felt like the main character was super codependent, and like his big speech at the end also sounded super codependent, where his like big thing was like, well, if we don't all win, you know, then nobody wins.
Nobody
and I was
wins.
like, I don't know about that guy, because what you're basically saying is that if you grow up in a situation, in a super dysfunctional situation, where people treat you poorly, and like maybe one person's your dad, like in the movie, or even I thought his friend that was in the band didn't treat him correctly either, and that guy, he ended up apologizing to that guy for what I would say is no reason. That guy was being dumb. Why did you apologize? So I feel like it was super codependent, and teaching codependence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I was like, this is
because
stupid.
like if you take the same situation
Right.
but change the families. So his family was like moderately dysfunctional. His dad moderately like was over strict and controlling, right?
Yeah.
But take it and say the dad was super like emotionally, verbally, physically abusive. You wouldn't applaud the son for getting up there and saying, well, if we don't all win,
I'd be like, peace.
none of us wins.
You better be like,
you'd be
peace.
like, you gotta cut off and you gotta move on and because you're responsible for the rest of your life. But nobody's gonna be like, oh, he should stick with his family.
Yeah.
No, you'd be like, you're done. So like when you just take it, then yeah, like that speech seems
like
rather
that.
codependent.
The other thing I didn't like is it just wasn't realistic. Like, this guy was supposed to be a nerdy 16-year-old who was afraid of girls. And then
I want to say he played that really well up until the point that all of a sudden
he was
like had all the moves.
He was smooth as hell is what he was. And I was like, gosh, that guy went from like afraid of girls to like just
a huge change.
Like
yeah.
we were like, this is like he's got mad game all of a sudden for this
well,
one
and then
girl.
to speak to like what you said earlier about him having like all this support, maybe this person who the story is based on in real life, maybe he did, but I mean, he had a teacher who was like all in for him. He like his crush on this girl ended up being his girlfriend, who like really like supported him and understood him. You know, like he had a best friend that was there for him, even though other people were like didn't like people from Pakistan.
Yeah,
he had a neighbor out of the blue who he thought hated him, but turned out that like he was super supportive of him being a writer because he accidentally read one of his poems he threw out. Like,
and you're trying to leave this place, guy? That is not the world. And actually, like I'm a writer. I'm an award-winning writer. that is not the experience of a writer of where all of a sudden, like, he didn't face any, like, difficulty.
It was
just
like the minute
everybody's like, I love this. This is great. And
he had
like,
all this writing.
That's not how it works.
His family doesn't, like, value this career. So he just has all this writing to himself. He thinks it's crap. But like the minute he shows it, the first person he shows it to, his teacher, she's like, this is amazing. I sent it off to a contest. And guess what? You won, and you now get to go to New Jersey where Bruce Springsteen grew up, and apparently it's a completely all expenses paid trip. So that seems...
it was all like total fantasy.
I wonder if that... But hey, you know what? If this really happened in this dude's life...
Or how about this?
That's awesome.
If you're interested in a girl, you're kind of shy, you see her somewhere, there's a group of people around, and you just start singing a song.
A Bruce Springsteen song?
That, now, keep in mind, she can't hear the music because that's
nobody can hear it.
You're wearing a Walkman. She's going to make fun of you, and everybody's going to laugh at you and call you an idiot.
That's what I thought. So, like, in this scene,
real.
Like, the girl's up on the steps passing out flyers, and I'm a woman. I've been a girl, and I knew that it was very important to me that I had my other friends around, what they thought of, like, whoever a guy was. And if they thought, like, the guy wasn't cool when I was younger, that had a tremendous impact on me. Man. So they're 16, right?
Yeah.
And, like, not only, because I feel like immediately what would happen is people would be like, dude, what are you doing, dude? And the girls around his crush would have been like, oh, like, this is embarrassing. But no, everybody loved it. Everybody, like, started dancing. And so that seemed a little
I've never seen a main character so loved and supported by so many people. And at the same time, I gotta get out of this place. I'm like, do you? Do you have to get out? You should stay here forever. Because everybody here loves you. You know what I mean?
The best thing is he wins over his family. So it was a happy, uplifting story. And maybe we're just curmudgeons. And so it bothers us a little bit more.
It might truly be that, like, we're super broken and come from super dysfunctional stuff. And so maybe this experience that this person had,
somebody else
maybe it's realistic. I don't know, but this isn't what I got. So I'm like, this isn't real. Nobody would do that. You know what I mean? Like, nobody would be all interested in your poetry and crap like that. Like, that's not real.
But I did cry more than one occasion. The end of the movie, you got to see photos of the real guy. He actually ended up seeing Bruce Springsteen in concert. It said over 150 times. He's met him in real life.
That's the last thing I want to kind of criticize a little bit.
Okay.
So, like, it showed it, and I was like, oh, cool, that's neat or whatever. But then I'm like, story I make up, if you're like, oh, I've seen this band 150 times. The story I make up is that you're super disordered. Okay? That's just the truth. That's what I think. I'm like, well, what? Like 150 times? Like, that seems to me like maybe something is out of whack in your life. And then, I haven't met Paul McCartney or whatever, but I'm not super, I don't think I would want that because I feel like I've seen Paul McCartney interact with people like me who are like, oh, Paul McCartney. And, like, it's weird for him. And then, like, I would imagine it would be weird. You know what I mean? Like, just meet a rando or whatever. Like, I don't know. Like, I've met people and other people that I've admired, not the same thing, but similar. And most always, it's disappointing because that's just how life works.
Well, you feel like you know the person so well, and then you meet them in real life, in person, and that connection isn't there.
It's not real,
because that person doesn't know you. And
so the movie kind of was like, oh, like celebrating this, what I would call, I mean, this is my opinion. It seems like there's an order to me. If you've seen a band 150 times, maybe I'm just like, because
I have more context.
I'm an addict, so like maybe it's just like I'm aware of like my own like, well, I couldn't see a band 150 times because that means I'm being obsessive, and I struggle being obsessive. So anyway, I was just like, I don't know, but I enjoyed watching the movie. Yeah. And I thought like we actually went and saw Bruce Springsteen once.
We saw him in concert. Yeah.
And it wasn't for us. Remember?
Yeah. No, I know. Had he sung like maybe more of his greatest hits, maybe it would have been different. Had he sang if we had seen the folk music album that we really loved, he didn't sing anything from that. We probably would have liked.
Love that.
But I would say Bruce Springsteen really enjoys being himself.
Yeah, he's awesome. I love him as a person. I would like to go. I'm like, oh, this movie does make me want to go listen to like his those big albums that were in the movie. I'm like, maybe I should give these a listen.
I already saw on our iTunes there's a Springsteen.
Obviously, Bruce Springsteen is one of the best musical artists, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway.
There's our review of Blinded by the Light.
Don't be blinded by the
By our
light
light.
of, yeah, exactly. At least if you are, wait till your vision comes back and like, comment, and subscribe.